It seems like emerging epidemics like Zika can unexpectedly pop up seemingly out of nowhere. One particularly scary example was the 2014 Ebola epidemic. Ebola virus is a member of the filovirus family. It's a negative-sense, single-stranded RNA virus. Its genome is about 19,000 bases long, packaged in an envelope elongated capsid. The virus causes a horrific hemorrhagic disease in man, a disease causing bleeding and high fever, much more dramatic and dreadful than yellow fever. The virus's natural reservoir might be fruit bats, but many wild animals can get infected. When infected animals are hunted and butchered, the hunters and those that prepare the meat for consumption become exposed to the virus-contaminated blood that can transmit the contagious virus. Fortunately, this virus is not airborne. Many of you have heard about Ebola only recently, but to be honest, it's been around for many years. The first cases of Ebola virus disease were reported in 1976 in southern Sudan and in Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo. The Zairian index patient, the first known patient to get ill, was Mabalo Lokela, a village school teacher in Yambuku, a remote village not far from the Ebola River, the namesake of the virus. It was late summer when Mabalo had taken a short vacation with a friend, and on their way back home, bought some smoked, freshly killed bats for dinner. Within days after his return, Mabalo came down with severe chills and high fever. He assumed that he was having yet another bout of malaria and went to treatment at the Catholic mission that ran a small yet severely undersupplied clinic. There, Sister Beata gave Mabalo a shot of medicine using one of the 5 reusable glass syringes they had at the clinic. Mbuzu, Mabalo's wife, thanked Sister Beata and helped her husband back home. Initially, things seemed to get better. However, the fever came back with a vengeance, along with terrible bouts of diarrhea and vomiting. Mbuzu and her 2 eldest daughters tended Mabalo day and night, but to no avail. His situation deteriorated rapidly. Barely able to breathe, gasping for air, he began to bleed through every orifice of his body, and so, despite all efforts, on September 8th, he died. Now there was nothing more to do and nothing that could be done, and so Mbuzu prepared her husband's body for the funeral ceremony. Together, family and nurses carefully washed the body, sponging away the thick, crusted blood, and conducted the traditional funeral rituals just outside the family hut. Within a week, those that had cared for Mabalo through sickness and prepared him for the funeral began showing themselves symptoms that Mabalo had presented. First Mbuzu, then her eldest daughter, then her sister-in-law, and finally her mother. They all died. Shortly thereafter, Sister Beata and another 18 friends and family who had attended the funeral succumbed to the deadly virus. By October, 318 cases of Ebola were identified and 280 resulted in death. Since the first 2 1976 Ebola outbreaks, another 15 outbreaks were reported, all in Central Africa. For most, tens of people were killed before the virus ultimately petered away. In 4 particularly severe outbreaks, the death toll exceeded 100 victims. Then, suddenly, in 2014, for the first time in history, Ebola emerged as a violent, full-blown, multinational epidemic, flaming up in West Africa. 28,616 cases of Ebola were reported, taking the lives of over 11,300 people located in countries of Guinea, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The index patient was ultimately identified, a young 2-year-old from the remote Guinean village of Miliandu. However, weeks passed before the smoldering epidemic was recognized. It was then too late to stop the virus from ravaging these poor, stricken countries. I've asked Professor Erica Sapphire to explain what happened that allowed Ebola to graduate from a limited, confined outbreak to a bona fide international epidemic.